Welcome to You Don't Know Vietnam, the show that demystifies Vietnam for global audiences by talking to the creatives, trendsetters and business owners who are taking on the market. Vietnam isn't all rice paddies and buffaloes, you know, as you're about to find out. I'm Ian Paynton, co-founder of We Create Content, and on this episode of You Don't Know Vietnam, we're talking to arts and culture journalist Nguyen Le. Le has been at the centre of Vietnam's arts, culture and creative scenes for more than 20 years as a journalist. As the editor of arts and culture platform Hanoi Grapevine, Le has found herself at the heart of a seismic shift as Vietnam's leaders are finally looking at arts and culture as a resource for growth. Today, she talks about this shift, the challenges and opportunities it holds for artists and brands, and what you should be looking out for in Vietnam's art scene right now. Let's get into this one. Le ơi.
Ơi.
Thank you for joining me. How are you doing?
Welcome. I'm doing well, I think.
Good.
Yes.
Yeah. Just come back from a trip trekking some mountains in northern Vietnam. You feeling refreshed for the new year?
Yes, I feel it's a very good start.
Yeah.
Prepare my mind and also my health for the busy coming year. Yes.
Yeah. What have you got coming up, do you think, this year? Any big things on the horizon?
Yes, I think now that I'm in the middle of a new wave, or you can say a new big attention on creativity. And now we have more connections and more collaborations with the Vietnamese government. So I can see that the Vietnamese government is now very much care about the creative industries and how it will help push the economy to grow better. I mean more sustainable, and also maybe a new area of growth. And this is a nice thing for me to see, because I was working in the arts and culture area for quite some years. I started as a journalist in 2001, and I love art and culture. But I think only until now that I can see there's a real attention from the government to pay attention to art and culture and to see art and culture as a resource.
Wow.
So this is an exciting time.
That is exciting.
Yes.
And you think this year is the year?
This year is another year. Actually, the beginning of this boom started, I think, 2 years ago, when Hanoi started this first festival about creativity. And it's called the Week of Creativity Source. So it's kind of, you want to create a new stream of creativity in the city. And it came after Hanoi was entitled Hanoi Creative City by UNESCO. So I would say that the boom started 2 years ago, but I've seen more and more people gather and more people talk about it, and the more high level of the government pay attention to this trend.
Wow, so it is a big year then.
Yeah.
And you're feeling ready for it.
I'm feeling ready, and also my mind is a journalist, so I'm very keen to want to observe how this country will move to that direction.
Yeah.
And how the government prepare themselves with the capacity and skills and also knowledge to really go into this area.
Yeah.
Because Vietnam was a country wasn't that used to the knowledge economy. They understood the strength of manufacturing, and Vietnam was a big factory for big brands in the world, and now it has to shift the way it moves to these creative industries. So it will create a lot of challenges. Yes, so I want to observe all this process, and of course I want to be an active agent in all this trend and boom. Yeah.
And hopefully lots of opportunities as well. I can see it would be a challenge, but also the opportunities for Vietnam's artists, creatives, young people.
Yes.
Because it feels to me that there's a bit of a disconnect really with regards to creativity, or at least in the past, and like the leaders of the country.
Yes. Before, creativity wasn't seen as a resource or drive in the economy. I think historically and politically, arts and culture was seen as a tool of propaganda, where they can romanticize the war and also the heroism. And it's not like that anymore now. The country don't need it anymore. So arts and culture has become a resource to drive the economy forward.
Right.
Yes.
So what does that look like then in terms of the opportunities for Vietnam's artists in the coming years?
I think that the opportunity, the chance are quite big, but also challenging, because I can see that in the arts, it has the nature to expand and to go beyond boundaries, and it has its own language to go very far beyond the countries, beyond its political status, or beyond all the conflicts and arguments. So when it have to go back to the local market, it has to face the challenge of where the boundaries are and how to make people understand those boundaries and expand those boundaries. And you can see the different kind of boundaries. Boundaries can come from the government, where you see the old way of thinking is still exists, and the boundary can come from the big companies, big brands, because art and culture is a new thing for them. They have a big interest in art and culture and in arts, and seeing art as a good investment. But it takes time for them to understand the value of arts and to really know what this strange people are doing and what this abstract painting or abstract art is about. So it takes time to learn. So this is the new stage of development, and everybody has to learn, and everybody has to challenge themselves to open their own boundaries.
Right.
Yes. So the artists have to learn a lot of many skills. Maybe they don't get used to it before. For example, they're just not making art. They have to learn about marketing themselves. They have to learn how to make a good website, a good portfolio, and how to make people understand themselves very well. Well, I think before, maybe 20 years ago or maybe 30 years ago, it's not as big thing that the artists have to think about. But now they have to think about all that. Yes.
And I guess, so there's sort of personal branding, there's communicating the ideas, and I guess there's also challenges around dealing with clients and commissions, rather than just doing exactly what we want as artists, but like actually having to deal with navigating through doing art on behalf of a big brand or even the government.
And also they have to deal with expanding their arts, not just offline physical way, because the internet and the power of sharing your art on the internet is right there, and you have to get used to all those different channels and different techniques and all the skills that is maybe tiny skills that you have to learn very specifically. So there are many things to do and many things to learn for the artists, but it's a huge opportunity for them to expand their arts and to get as many people as possible, locally and also globally.
We've known each other for, 12 years, I think? 10, 12 years. And back in Hanoi 12 years ago, we were seeing an art scene, but I felt like it was quite divorced from the rest of Hanoi and the community. It felt like its own sort of circle, and it was quite tight-knit. And I wasn't sure the impact that tight circle was having on the wider community in Hanoi or Vietnam. Do you think that's changing now then?
Yeah, I think your observation on a very small circle of artists is somewhat true to me. I can see that there's some resistance or some isolation among a small group of artists, and I think I can understand why. Because Vietnam went through quite a tragic history with wars and revolutions, and beliefs were changed, and family was torn apart, and many many disappointment and so much pain. So when it comes to the new era, of course, the change, and especially the sudden change, creates a lot of tensions. So I can see that why artists they isolate themselves from the rest of the world. But I think in your observation and description, I think it's more related to political I don't know, context.
Right.
I think so. Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah, and now I see a change. That yes, there is still a group people who do that, but I think there are less and less. Where I meet younger artists, and they are very professional, like driven, and they want to expand their career, and also they want to explore the market. So they have a wide view on how things going, and also that political context is not the same like 3 decades ago. Yeah, so it's changing. Yes. Yeah, but I want to add an extra note on the previous answer that I say about the older generation. I didn't particularly say that the older generation isolate themselves more. I want to say that yes, there's a certain group of artists, they isolate themselves more. It
right.
doesn't have to do anything with age,
No.
because I see older artists are very open and happy to share. And I also see younger artists who isolate themselves more. So it has nothing to do with age. It's about partly about the political context, and partly about who they are,
As
their
individuals,
personalities.
yeah. Yeah, I see.
Yeah.
And how have you seen the type of art change throughout the years? You know, you've seen the landscape change, you've seen the country change, the people change, technologies change, brands getting more involved, government even get more involved. How have you seen that art change?
Yeah, this is a big question. I can see that maybe I can divide in maybe form of art, so that easier for people to have that image in mind. The classic form of art is painting, or film, or music, like opera, for example. Those are more classic and you're more related to. And there are a new form of arts where everything mixed together. Like art installation, art performances, and multimedia exhibitions. Like if you go to the museum, you see a screen on a video, and then you have to put your headphone on, and then you hear some music, and at the same time you have to close your eyes and you do some activity. You walk. So that's kind of new form of art. So I can see that there's the more complex, the new multimedia art forms are in Vietnam right now, and it's not something very, very new, but because it started a few decades ago, when artists have to have their own interest in the TV or some devices that help them. But I think in general, I can see that art is becoming more complex, and it includes so many stories, so many layers of what's happening now in the world, and Vietnam is the same. It's also on that trend. I think also represent between the older generation and the younger generation. Why the younger generations, they can multitask, they know many things. They have curiosity on many different things, and they want to put that all in their arts and make the art very complex. Yeah. So in general, divided by form, I can say that.
Is the art political these days, would you say, or is there less of that happening?
It's always there. Art is politics is a good source for art, and I think it's always there. Sometimes it can be quite hidden because of censorship, and the artists, they know how to make their art seen without have to speak very straightforward about what they mean behind their art. So if you want to exhibit your work, maybe you have to change your message a little bit, and then maybe people who come to see the art can understand the message behind. So I always see that the artists have the need to express themselves, and politics is a very important source for their view and their expression. And I can see that there's some change in how the government sees censorship as sometimes an obstacle to creativity and to turning art into products and make it marketable. So I can start to see some new changes in the law to make censorship become less, less limited and expand a little bit more. Yeah.
What sort of changes in the law?
They make the process of censorship, like if you ask for a permit for an exhibition, then you know where to go is clearly, and you know how much the fee you have to pay to get a permit, and you know in how long you're going to get the permit. Like for example, 1 week if you go to Hanoi, if you make everything right, you make the application right, and then you know like in 1 week you will get the answer and get the permit for the exhibition. So everything is a bit clearer. And also there is a discussion about like pre-censorship, like for example, if you put up an exhibition, you have to send all the pictures in very good high resolution to the authority, and they have to check all the picture, and they have to read all the message, and they make sure it's safe to take it out for the public to see. But now the discussion is you don't have to do that. You do the exhibition and you take responsibility for your own arts, and also what the impact that you might create on the public. And if there's some issues, then you're gonna get in trouble, and you have to take your responsibility after. So that's a huge shift. Yes.
That's massive, isn't it?
Yeah, that's massive. Yeah. So yeah, I see it's a huge step in many years of working in the arts and culture scene. To me, it's a big change.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I didn't know that. And what sort of issues might an artist face? Like,
they might get a fine, or they may not be able to exhibit their work within a certain amount of time.
So what would need to happen for that fine to kind of...
Yeah. So there are quite abstract regulations about what is considered bad. So the two major things. One is if you discuss, re-question the ideology of Vietnam, and you challenge that, and you cannot challenge that. For example, Vietnam is a communist country, and in your art you say Vietnam, let's go capitalism, and then it's not allowed. And second thing is very abstract, and it very much depends on how you translate. How to say? Yeah, the message and the meaning is that you cannot do something that attack or violates the Vietnamese understanding of beauty and traditions.
Wow.
Yes, because thuần phong mỹ tục means the nice customs, nice traditions of Vietnam. Yes, so it's very much arguable, and it's leave an open space for understanding and different narratives and different perspective on what is thuần phong mỹ tục. So there are so many funny stories around this kind of understanding and censorship, and the artist may get a fine if the authorities think that it is not thuần phong mỹ tục.
Right. And is the new process of no pre-vetting of art, is that happening now, or that's going to happen soon?
The National Congress is discussing it. And I think in the cinema area, they already put it in the law on the draft. I have to check it again, but it's already there. The cinema area is more forward. While in the sector of fine arts and the other kind of art, they are slower, a bit slower. Yes.
I see. So it's exciting times then.
It's very exciting.
What else is happening in Vietnam right now with regards to the art world? What else is going on that's making people talk? Who's doing what that people should be looking out for?
If you come to Hanoi or you come to Vietnam, maybe the new things to check out are new art venues, and it's quite exciting. You can go check out the Outpost. It's the new arts, contemporary arts showroom, but they want to define themselves and the quality of a small private museum. So they introduce the art in the best way possible. And it's a private collector who built that showroom. So it's a new investment in the art, and it's very much worth to take a look. That's one new development where private collectors have become more wealthy, and they can see the importance of investing in art and sharing with people. So that's one direction you can see. The other direction is more it comes from the artists themselves, where you can start to see that they open their studio for people to come and visit. For example, outside Hanoi, maybe you can check out a studio by artist Nguyễn Ngọc Phương, and he opened the space to make exhibition not for himself but also for other artists. So make himself as a source and a hub. So and exhibit other people's work, and people can come in and take a look.
Where was that?
It's near it's in Sóc Sơn. Yes. Yeah, about 25 kilometers from Hanoi.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, so that's one new thing that I can see, that people start sharing out and building infrastructure and space for art. And even some places that you don't think that they have anything to do with art. For example, the International Center for Interdisciplinary Science and Education, based in Quy Nhơn. They opened their space to make the connection between science and art.
Wow.
So it's a very beautiful building, and they want to invite artists to come and show their work and make it a long exhibition, so it could expand for a few months. And this year they want to do it because they have they invite many professors, like Nobel Prize winner scientists from outside Vietnam to come to Vietnam and have meetings, and they want the artists to come and show their work.
Yeah. Quy Nhơn as well.
Yes, in Quy Nhơn.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah, to me that's very exciting.
Yeah.
Yes.
You mentioned about more commercial opportunities and commercial organisations sort of looking at art now as a way to help them communicate. What sort of trends are you seeing there, and what sort of brands and corporations are doing this, and what sort of art are they showcasing?
I think their focus and their interest in art is quite diverse. I could see that some the form of art they pay attention in is also interesting. It's not just the classical form, not just paintings or classical music. They also into new contemporary theatre performances, and they want to bring the performances from one place to another place. And I think those people who are developers and investors in real estates, they often have a building, a commercial building or apartment building. They want to do something at their venue, like they put up exhibitions, or they want to do a performance, or at their resorts. I can see that quite a lot. They invite artists to paint and exhibit their work at the resorts. And it's not just in Hanoi, but everywhere. You can see the big tourist area. Phú Quốc, in Ho Chi Minh City, yeah, different down sometimes. Yes. Yeah, and I see some efforts to consider opening an art space in their own space. And I could see that effort starts not right now, but a while ago, but it's been on and off, and they still didn't really see the potential, not yet. They made it as a test to see how it goes, and then they quit. But then some other new people coming in and want to test it. Like, for example, Vingroup, they opened the Vincom Contemporary Art Center, VCCA, in Vincom Royal City in Hanoi. And the center has been running for a few years now. So I think that's a good sign that they are spending money on the arts and want to see how it goes with it. Yes.
Talk to me a little bit about foreign funders and the impact that's having on Vietnamese arts and culture scene, and what it's had over the years and today as well.
Yeah, to me, funders and embassies and cultural centers, they overall they create a good impact. I can see that Vietnamese artists and also the art audience have opportunities to expose to new form of arts and new new ideas and new expression, and also new techniques, new technology as well, thanks to the culture centers and embassies and funders. And Vietnamese artists, I can see that when they have the opportunity to be supported by the funders, they can go abroad and they can absorb the new culture, a new way to expand their thinking and also their mindset, and then put it into the art, and then from there the audience in Vietnam can enjoy that. And also many free events that you can go to, free exhibitions, free talks, free performances, which is it's such a big opportunity.
Yeah.
And in the Vietnamese art scene and development, I can see that there's a very important time where Vietnamese art scene made a big change. It's after Đổi Mới and in the early 2000s, where the art culture centers, the foreign culture centers, are very active in culture exchange projects and activities. So in the year 2000, it's an important time for the arts people and also for the audience to enjoy all that exchange and to create a big inspiration, and also move the Vietnamese art scene into more towards more contemporary and less about war art, less about the romantic kind of art that you usually see. So there's a big influence, and overall a positive thing. But there are also some negative side to it, because I also have experience working with embassies and funders and NGOs, and maybe one thing that I wish that could be done better, I don't know how, it's very difficult, that usually you have a certain program that lasts for maybe 2 years, 3 years, or 10 years, and after 10 years working in that program, it has to end. The program has to finish. But I could see that sometimes to create a good long impact, or to really do something, change something, it takes time. If we're lucky, it's like education. You have to train, you have to, as a baby, and you have to grow up as an adult, and it takes decades to do that. So one single program cannot do that. And there's another mentality that once you work with funders and culture centers, and you start to have this dependency on the funding resource. So I could see a challenge that many art hubs faced, is that they depend on the fund from the culture centers, and when the fund is over, they have to struggle, because they don't know how to continue, and some of that have to close down. They don't know how to move forward from there, even though the impact and the value they create is very, very big. So that's one thing, that one downside for the Pubs. Yeah.
I thought perhaps there would have been like an element to the fund that sort of stated that in order to receive this, you know, the final chapter or the final phase would be making a sustainable plan for taking it forward. Is that not the case in a lot of them?
I made a research. It's not particularly about funding and how the funding impact on the survival of pubs, but I can, in my research, many art hubs that I pay attention on, they could not survive longer than 2-3 years, and if the rest could make it through 5 years, then they are more diverse in looking for sources and how to survive and have more skill in sustain themselves. But I know some certain projects are created by group of artists or people. They only last maybe for when the funding is there, and when the funding is stopped and it's gone.
I wanted to ask you a little bit about any artists that are really tapping into Vietnam's traditional arts and cultures and putting a modern dynamic spin on it. So they're taking what once was and bringing that forward into today. Does anyone spring to mind?
Yes. I can see actually it's a very it's a big inspiration. I can see many artists, they want to do that. Some artists become very successful of bringing the tradition, carrying the tradition and presenting in a new, modern and global way. I think recently what came into my mind is artists Thế Sơn and Trần Hậu Yên Thế. They are senior. And they are very successful in bringing the Vietnamese tradition and working with the young students and encourage them to create new form, but based on the research on what the tradition are. And they bring their arts to many different places in Hanoi, but maybe the most prominent prominent work you can see is the Phúc Tân area in Hoàn Kiếm district, where they turn a street at the back of the city that usually where people throw trash and into an art street. They put the artwork there and turn it into a new venue where people come and enjoy the view of the river and enjoy the artwork. And most importantly, the local people, they become very proud of their home and the surrounding, because it's been beautiful thanks to the artwork. So they change their lifestyle as well. They don't throw trash anymore. And all those elements that they put into the artwork come from the history of Hanoi. And that's a beautiful project you can see. And then a younger artist I can think about is Nguyễn Quốc Hoàng Anh. And he started this creative group called Lên Ngàn. And he creates very interesting performance theater work, and he includes Vietnamese traditional theater and music like tuồng, chèo, and mix it with electronic music and contemporary dance, and also traditional dance, and a new perspective on traditional story, and mix it all together and put it into very interesting performances. Yes.
I saw you emceeing at one of those performances at the theatre in the Old Quarter, right?
Yeah.
Last year.
Yes.
Yeah. And so that's Harry Nguyen, right?
Yeah.
Didn't he also do that in a courtyard, in an old outside sort of courtyard area of some communal housing?
Yeah, community housing, yeah. Tập thể Văn Chương. Yeah, it brings a completely different perspective on a traditional tuồng theater. You see the traditional costume, but in the background is that communist style architecture, and it creates such a big and impressive image.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it was full of young people. There was DJs, dancers as well, right?
Yes.
So it was just amazing.
Yeah, that's amazing.
How much coverage does something like that get in national press, and are the government paying attention to things like this?
The press, they Yeah, at the moment, the media, mainstream, we call mainstream press, they know about it, but it didn't create like a big coverage. It's to them probably it's like a daily news something, but it creates some attention to a few journalists who really want to know and who really have the interest in something new. And yet it has some coverage on the news, but it's not like big. But the government and actually I can see that many people know about Harry Nguyen's work and they appreciate his work. And recently, he was invited to perform and he's with his team in a seminar about culture industries by the Ministry of Culture. So really appreciate his work and they want him to show his work in important events like the
Great.
ministry. Yes.
Yeah. So these are all more signs that maybe things are changing in Vietnam with regards to art.
Yeah, I think in Vietnam because people start to see that arts can make money, and that's what people make the government excited about. Yes.
With all these signs taking place that leaders and big corporations are more open to art, what do you think the tangible effects of that will be on Vietnam?
In terms of the development of the market, Vietnam is at the early stage. So the impact is, yes, it can make art products and it can sell and means that the art people, they can benefit from that and make a better living with that and have more opportunities for themselves and more families. That's one way, but I think the other way that I'm more excited about is how people change their mind seeing art and value art. And to me it means that they care more about their mind and their mental health and their and they're very also people also very human in that way because art is what human very present the side of the people that we understand each other and have compassion for each other and we accept each other through art a lot. So when the government and big corporations see the value of art and want to go into that direction, I think it's a good, it's a shift in the mentality as well. Beside the economic side, yes.
So it humanizes it a little bit more.
Humanizes
It's almost
it,
more
yes.
like empathetic and
Yeah.
it's a connection with humanity, not just revenues and just want to talk a little bit about the difference between perhaps Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City, because obviously they're very different cities. One's a political capital, one's an economic capital. Do you see art change as you move up and down Vietnam?
It's interesting because the art people, they move up and down from Hanoi to Ho Chi Minh City. And many of them find their success in Ho Chi Minh City, or from there they go abroad and have exchange and have collectors who buy their work. But I can see that artists in Hanoi also have the opportunities. So in the art scene, there's not a big. I don't think there's a big difference between Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City in terms of the characteristic. Because the art people are actually quite connected between Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City. I can see that in terms of the space for arts and the demographic of artists, I think there are quite a big number of artists who started in Hanoi and then go to Ho Chi Minh City. And art space, there are new ideas and new art space in Hanoi. And then maybe there's a bit less of art space in Ho Chi Minh City. Yes, but more like like commercial galleries in Hanoi. They're more like creative hubs or experimental art space. In Ho Chi Minh City, more like commercial galleries and some of the experimental art space. Some of the collectives, there's like artists who form a collective and want to do something experimental together. Yes, so that I think that is the overall picture. In terms of also the government side of the art scene is very interesting because Hanoi is very open, much more open than Ho Chi Minh City. Culture authority, I can see that there's some a big difference.
Really?
Yes, Hanoi is more maybe more exposed to the new ideas and more challenged by the art people, so they're more
Wow.
open. While Ho Chi Minh City Culture Authority, they're in their own bubble. And what's happening outside that bubble, they don't really know what's happening and they don't change. Yeah. While the art people is very dynamic and very open and they change a lot, but the cultural authorities stay the same.
Right, right.
Mm.
That kind of surprises me a little bit. Maybe
Yeah.
it shouldn't.
Mm. I think because the system is somehow fixed in its ways and has nothing to do with the world outside.
Mm.
While in Hanoi there are more exchange, there are more connections. Yes.
Mm.
Mm.
For those that are listening that don't know, what is it you do for work? We haven't talked about Hanoi Grapevine. That was actually one of the first questions I had, and here we are at the end of the episode talking about
Yes.
Hanoi Grapevine.
It's true, and people may wonder who is this woman talking all about this.
It's okay, I'll do a little intro.
I'm now the head of the Hanoi Grapevine team, and Hanoi Grapevine is a website and social media platforms where we provide country or events, country events and art events. So if you go to our website and social media channel, you know where this exhibition is and when, and you can even save it in your calendar. We have a calendar on the website. We also write art reviews. That's one part of our work, and the other part is we more like a growing group of people who can write and who can tell, who can share the knowledge about communicating about art and art appreciation. So we help other organizations to promote their events or their festivals,
Mm.
and we can train our coach on how to communicate with art.
Mm.
Yes.
And as art seems to be getting a little bit more widely accepted in Vietnam and appreciated, are you finding that there's growth in the platform, in the number of visitors that you get to the website? Have you seen a growth there over the years? I know you've been working really hard on it for the last 5 years, 4 years?
7, 8 years.
Wow. Yeah.
Yes, 6, 7 years. Yeah.
So have you seen the numbers and your audience grow in that time because of this growing appreciation for art?
Yes. It's interesting because people don't go to website that much. So the number of audience on our website went down. And the number of audience on our social media channel goes up.
Yeah.
Yes. And I can see that also in the working circle, Hanoi Grapevine started out very small. We have a small team, but now we have a bigger team, and also we have a way more, like a very diverse and big network of not just the art people and the audience, but also researchers and also from the government side and from the NGO side, embassy side. So our network become much bigger with time.
Yeah.
And probably the most prominent group that Hanoi Grapevine now appreciate and can see the change is the group of government.
Yeah.
It's definitely they pay attention to art, and we were invisible before, and now suddenly we become the center of the change.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I really wanted to ask you what you're most excited about for Vietnam's future. I'm guessing it's something to do with that.
Yes, I definitely, because I love that art and culture in the way that it make people more human.
Yeah.
And I think it's always very important to remember that and to go to that direction.
Yeah.
So if Vietnam is going to that direction, I'm very happy, and I want to be a very active agent in this.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, you have been ever since I've known you, and I'm sure you will continue to be.
Thank you. Yeah.
I'm really excited to see what else you do in the next couple of years, and to see how Vietnam develops its art scene and all the benefits that has for creators, artists. journalists,
Yes.
and maybe, the brands and the government as well.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you, Ian. It was a good conversation.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. And my goal is to do 100 episodes first.
Wow.
So maybe we could talk again
Okay.
later on for a catch up to see how you're doing and what the progress is.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay. You take care, Lee. Great to see you.
Thank you. You too.
All the best.
Bye-bye.
Bye.